Hi, everyone. I'll keep it brief because I know you probably are dying to ask some really important questions. I had the shortest chapter in the book, so I might as well make it the shortest presentation for my segment. But I'm going to be talking with you about a specific case study that I conducted at one of the universities that was selected for these projects funded by the Ministry of Education, and that is Sophia University. I taught at Sophia University actually for 11 years. I'm now in the University of Bath in England. In my 11 years at Sophia, thank you. In my 11 years at Sophia, I actually, as a tenured associate professor at Sophia, I didn't know that we were involved in any of these projects. This was not actually commonly known. I don't know how much those people who work at the other universities actually know all that much about what's expected of them by working in these universities, what kind of impact it has on them. At Sophia University, I think a lot of it was that the funding really went toward the creation of new programs, which was something that was part of the design of the money that was given. But one of the things to note about Sophia University, I'm used to having to introduce the university and tell people all about it, but you know Sophia University, yeah. But you know that it's the home of, correct me if I'm wrong, but the oldest EMI program, English Medium Taught degree program in Japan, 1949 it was created. And so really in that sense, that program, which is one of the three that were involved in the case study that I did, already met a lot of the requirements that were, or the objectives of a lot of the projects. And we see that a lot actually in the G5 universities where they have these English medium programs already in place, and so they already meet a lot of these project requirements, but they do more with them. And for the latest project, the Top Global Universities project, Sophia University is, as a global traction university, providing examples, providing a model for other universities to globalize in the internationalization of higher education. So on this slide, the thing about Sophia University, I think one of the things for me with wanting to do this study, which is how I learned actually about Sophia University's involvement in these projects, was because a professor in the Department of English had actually asked me to read his draft article about the Global 30, I think in the days when it was being very highly criticized. And as I read through this article, I thought, yes, indeed, what a failure, right? And I think, as I read through these critical articles about the Global 30, he didn't publish it, by the way, but this article, I think one of the things about it was it's easy to be critical, I think. It's easy to criticize these projects. I mean, there's a sense that they are ambitious. There's a sense to where you can say that they're poorly designed or poorly executed, but I mean, we can say this about most projects. And I think there's a sense that I wanted to look at what Sophia University was doing. I wanted to say, well, okay, yeah, Sophia University gets credit for already having these projects or having these programs in place. But what is it about these programs that allows Sophia University to have the reputation that it has and to continue its participation in these projects? So that was really where my questioning was coming from. The successful implementation of EMI programs, and I looked at them in 3 different faculties. And I separated here these ideas about global approaches and global studies because I think this is one of the things about looking at how these programs may be examples of successful implementation of EMI. The idea of a global approach, I think, has everything to do with the idea that they recognize their history, right? So the first EMI program was based on an American university liberal arts model, right? And that model, then we see that also getting picked up in not just Japanese universities, but other universities around the world, where this idea that the American liberal arts model is one that translates well into other places. Of course, we're also looking at world rankings and how well American universities do. In terms of global studies, it has this idea about this kind of human capital, right? And we're creating global citizens in our students. And I think the thing about that that's important is recognizing that there is an important movement away from the American model or Americanization of higher education, and one that's maybe potentially towards something that's more global. I'll try not to be too idealistic about all this. I did actually leave Sophia, so I don't have to actually say nice things about it. They're not holding me accountable. So in this table, this was a construction, my analysis of these 3 different programs at Sophia University using a global English as language teaching framework. And so it's not just a traditional English language teaching, it's global English as language teaching, which comes from Nicola Galloway and Heath Rose's work in their book, Introducing Global Englishes from 2015. And their model actually is a kind of adaptation and building on Jenkins' English as a foreign language versus English as a lingua franca. So you're sort of looking at the elements, right? Where do these points meet? And looking at how then, in the ways that these programs do or don't address them, we can describe them as successful implementation of EMI. So in the 3 different programs, I won't go through all of them because I know that we'd move on to questions rather than listen to me waffle on in my jet-lagged state. But English Studies, this is the actual English language department at Sophia University. This is one of the most competitive English language departments in the country. Their acceptance rate is very low. This program is not an English medium taught program. It has some classes that are taught in English, but the majority of classes actually on offer are conducted in Japanese. This means that some students may choose to take more of their classes in English than in Japanese, but essentially what we see here is a mix. This is the program that kind of sticks out a bit, because you'll notice that otherwise the liberal arts program, so that's the Faculty of Liberal Arts, that was once known as, not Institute, but the Faculty of Comparative Culture, and before that, right, this is the original English medium taught program. Green Science on the right is Sophia University's response to some of the funding that they received from the Ministry of Education. So they created this English medium taught program in the hard sciences. And so the way that the study was done was classroom observations and talking with teachers in each of these programs. And so the thing I think to notice is that there are strengths depending on what it is that they're doing and what it is that they're trying to achieve according to the cohort, according to the group of students who are there. In terms of the English Studies department, the students there were already fairly proficient in English. I mean, this is highly competitive. One of the important factors for acceptance into the program was a high proficiency of English. So these are a lot of Japanese students who speak English very well. They had some Korean students, some Chinese students, and that was about it. Liberal arts, this program is made up of a mix of students who come from international school backgrounds. This is the place where a lot of the students from the United States, from other countries, come over to do their full undergraduate degree in this program. They take all of their classes in English, except for the Japanese language classes. Green Science was technically the same thing, but just in the hard sciences, which was the one area that was missing from the liberal arts program. The thing about the Green Science program, though, is that it was very small. Actually, at the time I did the study, it had 11 students. And these students were more from what we're seeing, actually more development. So we're seeing them more from East Asia and Southeast Asia, and they were in that program. So I think the thing to note basically is this global approach, right? This idea that we're looking at the way that English is more of a lingua franca in these environments is the key, really. Being able to recognize that the English that gets used in these places is being used among non-native speakers of English, that the audiences that they're going to be targeting in their use of English are non-native users of English, that the English that they're using is not the subject, it is the tool. So in liberal arts and in Green Science, no one is an English major, right? The students aren't studying English, they're just studying in the medium of English. Whereas in English Studies, they are actually studying the language, but they do also take content classes in English. And so all of that amounts to this idea that if we can avoid difference perspectives, if we can move away from the monolingual bias, if we can do these things, that we can find some advantages in a program that's been around for a very long time, and there's kind of the way that that program has influenced the other existing programs at that same institution. And those influences should ultimately amount in recognition of global citizens and creation of global citizens. So it's tricky, right? Because there's an idea that we want to be able to address the interests and the needs of the students in these programs, but talking to the teachers in these programs, they don't know about it the way we talk about it up here. They don't know what EMI is. The last faculty development workshop I did at Sophia was explaining to everyone in the Faculty of Liberal Arts that they are in EMI, and they're all looking at me saying, what is that? What do I do? I don't understand, right? And it's that level, right, of understanding in these places. That gives us some opportunities. We get to define for them what these things are and how they can address them, right? We don't have to take traditional approaches to these things because the people teaching on these programs don't know those traditional approaches anyway, right? So if we can stop, take a look at some of the examples that are working, some of the ones that aren't, even in these examples of good implementation of EMI, we can say that there are some really good opportunities here for other universities to use Sophia University as a model for good implementation of EMI. And I think that's probably all the voice I have right now. So I'll give this back to Annette. Yep, and we'll, yeah.
Thank you very much.